What really drew Foothill to Amanda's work and what we really found so engaging about it is her ability to craft these abstract yet very specific landscapes. Her emotive pieces seem to represent these highly personal and yet shared spaces in which the viewer seems to be encouraged to find themselves. She correctly describes her paintings like poems. The thrilling textures, colors, and compositions create these fluid associations between form and feeling. Foothill, and I can't say this enough, is tremendously proud to showcase her art. Her work not only makes for a beautiful issue, but it also adds this additional layer of evocative meaning to the newest installment of our journal. Thanks for being here with us, Amanda.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Emily. As Emily said, my paintings are poetic. They're very much about the landscapes that we're losing from climate change. They're about the interaction or the intertwining of humans and the landscape in terms of our impact on it, literally in terms of the marks we make on it through urbanization, cultivation, etc., through the centuries, but also how intertwined we are with it imaginatively. It's tremendously important to us emotionally and visually. And the cover picture is a very good example of that. This is a detail, but the painting's called Wish You Were Here. And so it has a kind of double meaning because that's something that you write on a postcard, but also it's about longing. This is actually an image of a place that's very often on postcards. It's in North Devon, near where my grandparents used to live. It's a very special place to me. It's called Valley of the Rocks. It's very sort of ancient. It's actually in a national park now, so it is protected. And it faces west, so you do get this fabulous sunset. And the postcards all feature it. But of course, the sun is much too big and the colors are slightly acidic. They're actually mostly spray paint. I mix man-made materials in with more organic materials because I feel that's another way in which we're super entwined. It's about our presence, the human presence in the landscape for me. But this big sun just it feels like the end of the world, but it's also kind of wonderful at the same time. So that's something that it goes through all of my work. All of this work is from this place, memories of this place in Devon where I spent a lot of my childhood. It's a very wild landscape. It's a moor and a lot of animals live there and it's very wet. So it has this incredible sort of atmospheric quality. I go into nature a lot. I make drawings from nature. The one on the left has a painting I made of a dry stone wall, which is a kind of very old wall that's made. I don't know if any of you guys come across this, but literally they pick up the stones that are from the land. There's no mortar and they'll build the walls. And these were built to keep sheep in. And so you see them everywhere in these particular landscapes. And they're so beautiful because they're literally just from what was there. So they've become part of the landscape in quite a benign way. So it is interesting to me that those kind of ways that humans have formed the landscape. And the other one, we have rocks made out of spray paint. So it's a little darker. The one on the right, tide pool, I was really thinking when I made this painting, like, how would it be if there weren't any tide pools anymore? Sea levels are rising, the oceans are acidifying. A lot of this stuff is going to be gone at some point. And I actually was walking around West Hollywood where I live, and I'm always wishing I was at a tide pool instead of wherever I am. And I was looking at the cracks in the pavements and I thought, wow, you know, one day this is all going to be under the earth. This is going to be a geological layer. This is going to be something that people will find in the way that we look at the rocks in tide pools now. And so I wanted to sort of make a painting that was sort of, how would you describe a tide pool to someone who's never seen one using what's available in the city, which was these pavement cracks. And it's marvelous how they became very organic in their own way, these huge pavement cracks. These are photographs that I have taken that have been blown up and then are transferred onto the canvas. So again, thinking about imaginatively how you can leap. And like a poem, this is another sort of thing, I guess, which is painters are like poets, that one image will trigger another. They're very associative. This one's 8 foot by 8 foot. Once they get to a certain scale, there's an immersive quality that actually does communicate what I'm trying to say better than the smaller ones. The smaller ones are very, you walk right up to them, you look at them, they're like this beautiful object that can be held, which is what I wanted to do from them, because that means that they are so fake, right? It's like a little landscape. Here's the world in my hand. But the big ones have the potential to force you to look all around and to think about how you frame and reframe and how you segment the world to look at it, to make sense of it, how you make it into a picture rather than an experience. So the scale really fed into that. This one was a drawing that was made in the same place in North Devon. The marks that were descriptive in the original drawing, that was probably about 12 by 16, have actually turned into texture in themselves, because they've been blown up and zoomed in on to such an extent that they actually sort of became something that wasn't a drawing anymore. The marks became textures. So there's actual literal texture and drawn texture. It's a painting about mark making. This one, Night Vision, this was really an experience from looking out of the window camping, and these colors just stuck with me. I often make a painting and I don't realize what the inspiration was until I finished, and I look at it and I recognize it as something that I had seen. This is another little painting. Again, it's about mark making. My work's very much about texture, the sort of zooming in and zooming out. I guess because I was a filmmaker for so long, I have that habit of having things with a multiple perspective and taking material from the world, whether by drawing or photographing, and then coming back into my studio and basically sort of editing it, finding what the story is or what the meaning is for me, what is left in memory, which also echoes my thinking about, I do really worry about what is going to be left for people to visit. This is a big favorite for a lot of people. The title came because of the pink stripe along the bottom. I was thinking the arm that goes around your shoulder feels like a line of flesh. And it's about looking. It's about, like, how does the world look depending who you're with when you look at it? If you're standing looking at a view with your lover, then it's very different from how you may look at it in another way. And the colors are these are harsh colors. Is this a beautiful sunset and a cloud, or is it on fire? People have very different interpretations. Before this summer, people had a different view of it. They would say, oh, it's so beautiful. And now they say, oh, it's terrifying. So I think it's a very interesting thing how the world is changing around us. It changes everything with it. I like to keep things transparent because I want that sense of ephemerality. These things are really held in a very delicate balance. And that's not just the ecosystem, but that's everything that we are doing and bringing to the world. It's a very delicate balance. We all are on this planet, not just in these little places, and we need to aspire to a better kind of balance. And I hope with the layering and the transparency to get a feeling of that fragility and of that possibility that this thing it's only just held together, and it could really come apart. And I'm formally, I'm very interested in that as a painter. It's like how much holds that image together and how much starts to really drag it apart.
Amanda, thank you so much. Truly, it is a treat because we've never, ever had an artist sort of talk about the pieces of their work, especially as they appear in the journal.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.